Okay, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Given that for today, face-to-face classes are canceled, and we've been requested to shift online with our provost urging for faculty to have consideration to students who are unable to participate in this alternative modality. As I've announced, today's session will be generally asynchronous. I'm recording for the purposes of everyone being able to watch this recording before our Tuesday class next week. What you're seeing on screen is our updated schedule based on the shifting of the face-to-face classes. So today is September 26. So instead of having our first long exam for Module 1, we will instead move forward to Module 2. So I'll be introducing evolutionary ecology for today. And then on Tuesday next week, we'll continue our discussions on evolution. And then if the weather permits on October 3, so that's going to be Friday next week, we will be having your long exam on Module 1. So hopefully we can stick to the rest of our schedule with your first quiz on evolutionary ecology happening on October 7. You have a homework for EvolMed on that day also. And then your second quiz for evolutionary ecology on October 14, and your final quiz for evolutionary ecology on October 21. Okay. So as I've mentioned during the introduction of the course, the second module for ECOL app is on adaptation and evolution. Now, in ecology, understanding natural phenomena, the environment, different ecosystems, would require examining both what we call proximate, yung mas malapit, mas immediate na cause ng isang phenomenon, and then the ultimate explanation for a phenomenon. So this is more general, this is more applicable to a wider set of elements. Kumbaga, mas universal siya kesa sa proximate explanation. So both of these provide what we call complementary perspectives on biological patterns. So to elaborate on what proximate explanations are, so as I mentioned earlier, immediate sila, nandyan na agad, they're direct. So mas nakikita natin yung pinaka-soon, pinaka-malapit na cause ng isang phenomenon. So in a way, they are the how explanations. They often focus on environmental, physiological, or behavioral triggers. So in the example you're seeing on screen, if you're studying birds, you may notice that they may lay fewer eggs and have smaller clutch sizes. So when we say clutch sizes, that's the number of offspring they have in a batch. So they may have smaller clutch sizes during times when there's little food because their bodies would lack the resources to produce and sustain more children. Another example would be in corals. Environmental cues such as changes in temperature, increasing day length, moonlight intensity, and also timing after sunset. All of this can directly trigger synchronized spawning events, if you remember that podcast from our first module. So these cues help corals align their reproductive activities with optimal environmental conditions for the release of their sperm cells, their egg cells, in order for fertilization to happen. Now, ultimate explanations, on the other hand, so kung ang proximate is how, ang ultimate explanation naman ay why. The why of these phenomena. And usually, this is rooted in evolutionary theory. So they address the long-term adaptive advantages and selection pressures that shape behaviors or traits. So babalikan natin yung birds. If you reduce the clutch size, if you reduce the number of offsprings that you have during resource scarcity, this may have evolved as a strategy to ensure that even though you have fewer offspring, more of them would survive, and you can actually maintain the health of the parents themselves for future reproductive seasons. So it's basically making sure that the small number of individuals who are alive will continue to stay alive rather than risking having more children, tas mamamatay din naman kayo lahat. Now, in corals, synchronized spawning events timed with seasonal temperature cycles, wind speeds, tidal phases, and diurnal phases likely have evolved to optimize fertilization success. And then apart from fertilization, we also want to maximize dispersal, saan sila pumupunta after ma-fertilize para ma-make sure that wherever they've gone to, they would survive and create more coral colonies. And also to minimize predation, make sure that they're not just being eaten by fish and other predators who are nearby. So this distinction underscores the importance of studying evolution in an ecological perspective. So evolution provides us siguro mas comprehensive na framework in order for us to understand not just how organisms respond to environmental cues, but why. No, when kids ask about the world, ang kulit nila, pero bakit? So we usually tend to explain how things work, pero they're the ones who keep on asking, bakit? Why? Why? So in evolutionary ecology, we get to answer those why. So why do these responses happen as they do? Why these responses have persisted? And why they are advantageous for the long-term survival of the different species that are alive today, and why they are experiencing ecological success. So at the heart of all of this is evolution. No? So evolution, usually we cover that in your genetics classes kasi it's about genetic change. So it's genetic change in a population of organisms over time. So at its core, evolution is driven by many mechanisms, including mutation. So that's the more genetic side. Natural selection, which is more on the ecology side, and then the combinations of both in genetic drift and gene flow. So all of these collectively influence the genetic composition of populations. Now, an organism's ecological situation, what they need right now, the kind of temperature they need to survive, the kind of salinity they need to survive, etc. All of this play a crucial role in directing the evolutionary path of that species. So, environmental factors, kasama na doon yung resource availability, predation, competition, climate conditions, all of these exert selective pressures that shape the physical traits and, of course, their counterpart genetic composition of the populations that we have. So these selective pressures, they determine which traits enhance survival. So not just survival, but also reproductive success. Kasi you can't really contribute to evolution if you're not having children. So it's not just about an organism surviving, it's that organism producing offspring that will survive. So the response of organisms to their ecological situation, it is considered evolutionary when advantageous traits become more common in the population as we move towards future generations. For example, since I'm studying mangrove crabs, let's talk about alimango. Let's say you have a population of alimango living in a habitat with changing salinity. OA na daw yung temperature, puro na lang temperature. Salinity naman. So let's say the crabs are living in a habitat where the salinity is fluctuating. They may actually evolve to tolerate wider salinity ranges if those with salt-tolerant genes survive and reproduce more successfully. So what is important here, what I would like to highlight at this point, is that the basic evolutionary unit is a population. A population can also be called conspecifics, just in case you might want to read journal articles or textbooks about it, sometimes population is also called conspecifics, no? Members of the same species, inhabiting a specific geographic area. So evolution occurs at the population level, not at the individual level. Kasi at the population level, genetic changes can accumulate over time. And this can lead to adaptations that better align the population with its ecological context. So understanding evolution within the framework of ecology, it emphasizes yung tinatawag na nature versus nurture, yung dynamic relationship between the genetics of an organism and their environments. So this highlights how populations adapt to changing conditions in their pursuit of survival and reproductive success. Ang problem ko though, when we're studying evolution, for some reason, most kids nowadays, they often align it with Pokemon, kung paano nag-evolve, yung sila Pikachu, sila Charmander. Pero, this is not evolution, okay? The evolution as shown in Pokemon is not how evolution works. So, ano yung mga criteria kung bakit hindi? So, tingnan natin time scale. In Pokemon, evolution happens instantly. So, one moment you're Pikachu, the next moment you're Raichu. But in biology, in nature, evolution takes place across many, many, many generations. So often it takes thousands to millions of years. So no individual organism evolves, transforms into a new species within its lifetime. So you cannot just suddenly transform. Oh no, all of a sudden I'm Homo novus. No, hindi pwedeng ganon. The second primary difference is the level of change. In Pokemon, evolution is sudden, no? Napaka-dramatic ng transformation. An individual's body all of a sudden changes in form, biglang may mga bago silang abilities. So it's a very dramatic. But in biology, evolution is about changes again in populations. So we're not looking at individuals here. So traits, and often a lot of them are small and subtle, they spread when individuals with advantageous variations survive and reproduce more successfully than others. For example, if you've done your predator-prey pre-lab in the lab, you might have noticed when we're talking about the types of selection, we're talking about length of tail, umiksi, humaba. So we're not really talking about bigla na lang naging 8 yung legs ng cat or anything, no? So the traits are subtle, and it's about the spread of the traits in a population, not the sudden appearance in an individual. And then we can also look at mechanism. In Pokemon, evolution is triggered by reaching a certain level after fighting, using some kind of power stone or other external cues. So it's very much magical. It's almost like a magical metamorphosis. Whereas in biology, evolution happens through genetic variation. So that means mutations that you acquire when you're exposed to mutagens. It could be through the natural recombination that happens through our gametes. And then once you have that genetic variation, you combine that with natural selection, the pressures that the environment put on you. So again, together with processes like genetic drift and gene flow, this can lead to the evolution of populations. So what I'm pointing at here is there's no conscious trigger or predetermined path when it comes to evolution in biology. Okay? So in Pokemon, they call this evolution, but it's actually closer to metamorphosis in real organisms, like when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly or when a tadpole turns into a frog. True biological evolution would be more like if over thousands of generations, Pikachu populations gradually changed, some perhaps getting bigger, others smaller, others developing subtle new abilities, and eventually becoming distinct species. So that's evolution, But what you're seeing here is actually not evolution. Siguro, if we're gonna look at popular media and what can be a better metaphor or analogy for evolution, siguro Digimon pa. No? I mean, I love them both. As a geek, I love them both. But Digimon kasi, if we're gonna use it as an analogy for evolution, one thing I like about Digimon is how the evolutionary process has branching paths. So a single Digimon could digivolve along multiple possible routes depending on their environment, their training, or their partner influence. For example, si Agumon, as you can see on screen, he can become Greymon, Tyrannomon, or others. Sobrang daming possibility. So in biology, re- real evolution is also not linear. It can be branching. Kasi populations can diverge into different lineages depending on environmental pressures and also random genetic changes. So at this point, I would like to highlight yung environmental influence and how it's so important in evolution. Sa digivolution, yung outcomes niya are strongly shaped by conditions like ano ba? Kung sino yung nakalaban nila, battle experience, how they're being taken care of by their masters, and even exposures to certain items or data. So, similar yan sa biology kasi in our case, evolutionary trajectories are shaped by environmental pressures like predation, climate, food availability, and competition. So, populations adapt differently depending on their ecological context. And then interesting pa dito is yung reversibility and plasticity ng evolution. Digivolution can actually be temporary or pwedeng ibaliktad. It can be actually reversible. A Digimon kasi can return to its previous form after expending too much energy. So this echoes what we call phenotypic plasticity, which we will talk more about in some of our next sabihin ko in our next episode, in our next classes, no? But basically, phenotypic plasticity is where organisms adjust their traits depending on conditions. So, yun nga, in biology, technically, evolution itself is not reversible, pero there are organisms who show plastic responses, meaning flexible yung pag-adjust nila sa environmental changes. So we usually call this process acclimation. So Digimon's reversibility is actually closer to the concept of acclimation. And then there's also variation within species. So two Digimon of the same starting form might end up very, very different due to how they were raised or trained. And in the case of biology, variation among individuals is the raw material for evolution. Some survive, others reproduce better, and this leads to divergence. So, Digimon evolution, although basically metamorphosis pa rin talaga siya, magical metamorphosis pa rin siya, pero Digimon evolution is closer to evolutionary principles kasi may pinapakitang branching, variation, saka environmental influence. But yun nga, dramatized pa rin siya kasi it happens to individuals instantly. Pero if you look at evolution, it's happening to populations over generations. So, just to make sure that this is absorbed by everybody in a step-by-step manner for more success. So can individuals evolve? The answer is no. Individuals do not evolve. It's populations that evolve. So again, remember, evolution involves changes in the genetic makeup. So we usually measure that through counting gene frequencies. How many genes of this kind is present in a population? And we look at it over successive generations. So we don't look at it in one lifetime. We look at it across many lifetimes. So an individual's genetic composition is often fixed. Hindi na yan magbabago, pinanganak ka na eh. So it's fixed at conception and it does not change. Very, very minor changes lang during its lifetime, at least, in an evolutionary sense. Hindi nagiging dramatic yung change. So, tayo as individuals, we can develop, we can learn, we can adapt physiologically or behaviorally to our environment. This is called phenotypic plasticity. Kasi these changes are not passed down genetically. Okay? Now, can communities evolve? So communities are groups of different species living together in one place. So communities, they do not evolve in the same way populations do. What they do is they can change or they can shift over time due to ecological and evolutionary processes. So to go back to the definition of evolution, evolution is genetic change in populations over generations. Since a community is made up of different species, it lacks a unified gene pool. A crab cannot mate with a fish. A mangrove tree cannot mate with a human. We cannot make babies with each other. So because we cannot exchange our genes with each other, communities themselves, they do not get to evolve. But it doesn't mean they're static. It doesn't mean they're fixed. They change, but we don't call their change evolution. It's just change. Pagbabago lang, no? So communities can change due to ecological processes, and some of these can be influenced by evolution, and these changes may result from, species adaptations. Kunyari, as populations within a community evolve, so yung mga individual species within the communities evolving, their interactions, such as predator-prey relationships or competition, this can change. For instance, if a mangrove crab species evolves to better tolerate high salinity, it may affect the dynamics of crab predators. Baka, ay, shucks, dumadami na sila. So, instead na maging prey si alimango, predator na siya. And they would be stronger competitors in the mangrove ecosystem. So that's a shift in the community. Another common change in community dynamics would be species turnover. This is when changes in community composition happen kasi may bagong species na pumasok. So new species are migrating in, or it could be because some species are going extinct, or other species are becoming dominant due to environmental shifts or competitive advantages. And then there's also co-evolution. This is when species within a community, they exert pressures on each other, nasa-stress nila yung isa't isa, and this leads to co-adaptive changes over time. A very popular example is that in the Western world, at one point, people were panicking kasi they think bees were going extinct. Kasi nga, because of the overuse of pesticides. So what people should remember is that flowering plants and their pollinators, so they often evolve in tandem to maintain efficient mutualistic relationships. And that's why even if an insect appears to be irritating or frustrating, it's possible that they have a niche, an environmental purpose that we are not familiar with. And so their eradication can cause the community to shift. So again, communities do not evolve in the genetic sense, but they can transform, they can shift, they can change, they can restructure due to the evolutionary and ecological dynamics of the populations that make up the community. Okay, next. Can populations evolve? Yes. Populations are the ones that evolve, no? They are the fundamental units of evolution. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, a population is defined as a group of individuals of the same species. Again, we can call them conspecifics, living in a specific geographic area. So they're capable of having sex and creating babies. So they're capable of interbreeding. And therefore, a population would share a common gene pool. They can exchange DNA with each other. So evolution occurs when the genetic composition of this population changes over generations. So how do populations evolve? So let's look at the different factors that affect it. So first, we have mutation. So mutation are the random changes in the DNA sequence, and they introduce genetic variation. Some of this can lead to phenotypic or physical change. Others are more silent. So the more mutations you have, the higher the chances of evolution. And then there's natural selection. As I've mentioned earlier, this is the more ecological aspect of evolution. So this is when individuals with favorable traits, they end up being more likely to survive and reproduce, and therefore they pass those traits to the next generation. Kasi more often than not, the traits, the physical traits that allow us to survive, they have a genetic counterpart. And if we have babies, those babies could be carrying those genes that would be responsible for the favorable traits. Now, if only things were that simple, we'd only work with mutation and natural selection. But sometimes genetic drift happens. So genetic drifts are random events, as in walang nagplano, nangyari lang, pumutok yung bulkan, nalaglagan ka ng bato, nag-earthquake, kalahati ng population nalaglag dun sa butas ng earth, bumaha, nalunod yung population, and so on. So random events. So these random events can cause dramatic changes in gene frequencies kasi all of a sudden, a huge portion of the population disappears. So genetic drift is something that our genes cannot plan for, natural selection cannot plan for. And small populations are often more vulnerable to genetic drift kasi if 10 lang kayo, tas nagkaroon ng sinkhole, katulad nung nangyari sa Thailand, paano kung 8 sa inyo nalaglag sa sinkhole, the majority of you are gone. So majority of your genetic variation has disappeared. Not because you're more or less fit, it's just a coincidence, no? So that's genetic drift. Dramatic changes in gene frequencies because of random events. And then there's also gene flow. Okay, so when it comes to gene flow, it's when new genes or new versions of genes are introduced into your population because of migration. Like, may bagong salta. Like, there's this person who is now going to be interbreeding with your population, and this individual can be carrying versions of genes that cannot be found in your natural population. So, for example, in humans, before when racism was more popular than it is now, and before traveling to other places became easier, different nationalities actually had distinct physical features from each other. I mean, up till now, we can still see it. Like, we know a person is from the European part of the world or the Northern American part of the world. We know if a person is probably from East Asia or Southeast Asia. We have distinct physical features. But because of gene flow, a Filipino intermarrying with a Northern American, suddenly you have a group of individuals na, ano yan? Hybrids or half-breeds that have a mix of genes and a mix of physical features that's unique to that population kasi they weren't there before. So that's gene flow. And of course, that's possible because most species, they proceed with what we call random mating. Meaning, hindi naman tayo nakaprogram na itong individual lang na ito yung papakasalan at gagawa natin ng babies with. So, yun. So, if we look, sige, at an example, again, balikan ulit natin ang alimango. I'm so sorry for my lack of creativity this afternoon. Let's say we have a population of mangrove crabs. They're facing stress in their environment, again, because of higher salinity levels. So we may have crabs with genetic traits that are allowing them to tolerate higher salinity. So they survive. Since they're surviving, they get to produce babies. And so they're successful. So, from the beginning, konti lang sila na salt tolerant, but over time, the proportion of salt tolerant crabs would increase. So this could lead to a population that's better adapted to the environment, and then eventually the genetic change would be so different in such that they can no longer interbreed with the crabs who are not salt tolerant. So ganun siya, hindi siya kasing dramatic as we see in movies. It's a matter of gaining traits that will give you an advantage in your environment for now until you reach the point that you're so different from the original members of the population that you can no longer produce fertile offspring. You can no longer produce babies together. And so eventually, once a population evolves to that extreme, you end up with species evolving. Okay? So, species can only evolve through the evolution of their counterpart populations. No? A species can only evolve once the populations within them have evolved. So, a species, again, so that we're on the same page, is typically defined as a group of interbreeding populations that share a common gene pool, and again, they produce fertile offspring. When populations within a species undergo genetic changes due to the mechanisms I've mentioned before, again, mutation, natural selection, genetic drift, and gene flow, the species as a whole can evolve. So, species can evolve within populations or they can evolve through speciation. So what do I mean when I say populations can evolve within itself? So this is what we call microevolution. These are small genetic changes accumulating within populations, leading to variations among individuals. So microevolution resulted to the distinct physical features of the different human races. Macroevolution, on the other hand, which is also called speciation, this is when genetic changes within populations become significant enough, sobrang laki na niya, that interbreeding between groups is no longer possible. So this is when new species can form. Okay, and again, this is called speciation. So balikan natin yung mga alimango ko. Let's go back to the mangrove crabs. Let's say a population is geographically isolated due to, ito naman, rising sea levels. Wow. Nireclaim kasi yung Manila Bay, so tumaas yung sea levels ng Bataan, na-isolate yung isang population ng alimango doon. So over time, the isolated population in Bataan might adapt to different environmental conditions and develop distinct genetic traits. Let's say, marunong na silang kumain ng plastic. Wow, magic. So if these differences become so pronounced that individuals from, let's say, the Bataan population and the Cavite population that they were separated from, they can no longer interbreed successfully. Like, nire-reject na nila yung isa't isa, or pag nag-mate sila, yung offspring is barren or sterile, hindi na siya makapagawa ng anak, then this means a new species of mangrove crab has emerged. Okay? So it can be very, very subtle. They don't have to change physically. They might have just gotten an accumulation of genetic changes that change their chromosome numbers, and so their gametes are no longer compatible with each other. So that's how evolution or speciation works. Now, in an agricultural perspective, this time we look at varieties. No, varieties can also evolve as part of evolutionary changes within population. So when we say variety, it refers to either naturally occurring or selectively bred subgroups within a species that has distinct characteristics. In dogs, for example, you have breeds. In plants, we use the term varieties. So it could be a different size watermelon, a different color flower, or an animal with different behavior. So again, for plants, we use the term varieties. for animals, we use the term breed more commonly, especially for domestic species. So how do varieties evolve? So natural evolution can happen. In wild populations, varieties can actually evolve when different groups within a species adapt to specific environmental conditions. So natural selection and genetic drift may actually reinforce these adaptations. But now, because of the human influence, artificial selection is also in play. We've played a significant role in the evolution of many plants and animal species. Sa dog breeds na lang eh. By selectively breeding dogs with traits that we find cute or useful, like herding ability, yung mga malalaking dogs, guarding instincts, or yung iba dahil fluffy, dahil ganito yung quality ng fur, dahil maliit, no, their companionship qualities. So this process leads to the development of distinct breeds over relatively short time spans. So, you know, border collies, if you're familiar with that, o kaya chihuahua, these animals did not evolve naturally. They were selectively bred for certain traits, like border collies. Selective breeding involved intelligence and herding ability. Ang chihuahua naman, they were bred for their small size and their suitability as lap dogs. Yung pwede mong ilagay sa lap mo pag nakaupo ka. So over generations, selective breeding reinforced these traits. Kaya yun nga, meron na tayong distinct breeds with unique genetic and behavioral characteristics. Okay. Now, another term that you might hear often in this module and when talking about evolution is adaptation. So, adaptation, just to make sure we're clear, hindi siya yung, ay shucks, ang hirap ng ecology. Mag-a-adapt ako by studying hard and attending even asynchronous classes synchronously. Wow, love that. But that's not adaptation. That's acclimation. Adaptation involves genes. It involves genetics. So adaptation is a genetically determined characteristic, even if it's behavioral. But most of the time, it's morphological, so it's in the structure of the organism, or physiological. And what it does is it improves an organism's ability to survive and reproduce in a particular environment. So these traits are the result of selective pressures from the environment that favor individuals that are better suited to it. So yun nga, ang nakakapag-survive at nakakapag-anak ay yung kayang gawin yun despite what the environment looks like. So adaptation is part of evolution. No? It's actually an outcome of the evolutionary process. And specifically, it's shaped by natural selection. So evolution, it refers to the broader genetic changes over time. But what adaptation represents is the specific solutions that organisms have developed in response to environmental changes. So evolution is the process, adaptation is the output. Okay? So adaptation, madali siyang ma-confuse with acclimation or evolution. So I've created this table that you can actually screen cap to help you make sure that you've distinguished the three from each other. But in summary, acclimation is short-term, it's a reversible adjustment, and it's usually made by an individual, by an organism, in responses to immediate changes in its environment. So these changes occur within the organism's lifetime, and they do not, I repeat, they do not involve changes to their genetic code. For example, let's say hiker ka, hikerist ka na. Yun na yung midlife crisis mo. When you travel to high altitudes, your body can actually temporarily increase red blood cell production so that you can improve oxygen transport. Similarly, sige, fish naman. They may alter enzyme activity to function better at different water temperatures. So Because acclimation is a physiological or behavioral adjustment, not a genetic one, its effects disappear if environmental conditions return to normal. Adaptation naman, in contrast, it comes up through the process of natural selection acting over many generations. So it would require genes being passed on from parents to offspring over time. So ang nire-reflect niya would be genetic changes in a population that improve the ability of organisms to survive and reproduce in a specific environment. So if you compare it to acclimation, adaptations are heritable, namamana siya. So it could be thick fur of Arctic animals, o kaya yung salt-excreting glands of mangrove trees. So these persist because they confer a survival or reproductive advantage. So adaptations are lasting. Whole lifetime siya. They're solutions to recurring environmental pressures. So they're not temporary fixes, no? Pangmatagalan. Evolution, on the other hand, finally, is the overarching process that explains how populations change genetically over time. So it encompasses both the development of adaptations and other genetic shifts that may not directly improve survival. Meaning, evolution can be for good or for bad. It can be to help, so adaptation, or it could also involve neutral mutations or genetic drift, things that do not necessarily make a species stronger. So, again, evolution occurs through many mechanisms, including natural selection, mutation, genetic drift, and gene flow. Papaulit-ulitin talaga natin ito para matandaan nyo. Whereas if you look at adaptation, they are a prominent outcome of evolution. But, again, this is a big but, not every evolutionary change is adaptive. For instance, some traits spread through populations by chance, like genetic disorders and diseases, rather than by giving that population an advantage. Okay. Now, some other terms that you will encounter for this module would be phenotype and genotype. So, we use these two terms whenever we want to talk about how traits are passed on. So, genotypic differences, so genotypes, are the genetic basis for traits that get passed on to the next generation. So, when we're talking about genotypes, we're talking about genes, as in DNA as a molecule. While phenotypes or phenotypic differences, these are the traits that we can see. The color of an animal's fur, the height of a tree, the number of flowers that a plant can provide, their inflorescences, etc. Yun ay phenotype. So these traits may help an organism survive in its environment. Now, we also use these two terms when we're talking about how natural selection works. So phenotypic traits, like the ability to blend into the environment, these are what helps organisms survive and reproduce. Now, over time, the genetic versions that produce these traits can become more common in the population. For example, animals with better camouflage, so that's the phenotype, will survive longer and reproduce more, passing on the genes, so the genes are the genotype, responsible for this trait. Now, we also use these terms when we're talking about how organisms adapt to the environment. So genotypic differences, they give populations the potential to evolve. The more genetic diversity, so the more versions there are of genes, the more likely some individuals will have traits that help them adapt to environmental changes. While phenotypes, specifically phenotypic plasticity, is when an organism changes its appearance or behavior. So immediate change siya, no, within an organism's lifetime. And we do it in response to the environment. But again, this is not a genetic change. It's just a temporary adjustment. Now, we also use both phenotypes and genotypes when we're tracking evolution. By studying genotypic differences, we can understand how species are related and how they have evolved over time. Whereas when we look at phenotypic differences, these show how the genetic changes that they have accumulated have affected the traits that we see today. So in practical terms, in conservation, knowing the genetic diversity, so the genotype of a population, helps protect its long-term survival. In breeding naman, or agriculture, selecting for certain phenotypic traits, like size or color, can help create desired characteristics in plants or animals. So to give you context, in dogs, para hindi naman alimango na naman ulit, the genotype determines the genes for fur color, while the phenotype is the actual color you see, like brown or black fur or spotted, ganon. If a certain fur color helps dogs survive better in an environment over time, more dogs with that color may be born because it's those dogs that get to survive and breed, so they pass on the genes for that fur color. Okay. So what we'll be doing this Monday, so this is to close today's session, what we'll be doing on Monday is to compare phenotypic and genetic differences within and among populations, particularly in the perspective of common garden experiments. So comparing genetic and phenotypic differences within and among populations can help us determine if what we're seeing is genetic adaptation or phenotypic plasticity. So this is very important if we want to understand how species respond to environmental changes, especially now na nag-i-intensify na talaga ang climate change. So within a population, phenotypic variation without genetic differences would suggest plasticity. So this allows individuals to adjust to different conditions without evolutionary change, meaning short-term lang yung pagbabago. Among populations naman, genetic differences indicate local adaptation, where populations evolve distinct traits suited to their environments, leading to the formation of what we call ecotypes. So, useful yang malaman in agriculture kasi for example, tayo, maraming fish ponds in landlocked provinces like Bulacan and Pampanga. And so they bring in fish or crabs or shrimp that were captured in different parts of the Philippines. Tas minsan, the people who are growing these organisms in their ponds, nagugulat sila kasi why is it that when we buy crabs from Sorsogon, they survive, but when we buy crabs from Lanao del Norte, they die? And a possible cause for that would be ecotypes. It's possible that shrimps or crab that have grown adopted or have evolved to be adopted to local conditions such as temperature fluctuations, salinity fluctuations, dissolved oxygen fluctuations in those regions, they cannot just adjust to the temperature, salinity, and DO variations of the fish pond kung saan sila pinapalaki. And so there are two possible adjustments to this. If the mangingisda, if the owner of the fish pond has technological resources, they can actually artificially adjust the temperature, salinity, and dissolved oxygen of their ponds to match the source. Or if they do not have access to those kinds of technologies, or if it's too expensive, they can adjust where they're sourcing the crabs, the shrimp, and the fish from to make sure that it matches the conditions in their sites so that we lessen mortalities. Sayang kasi, di ba? I mean, whenever we source organisms from the environment, it definitely creates an ecological impact. So if we want to be sustainable, we want to have as small impact as possible to the environment while also making sure that our human population is fed. So that's one reason why we need to keep track of whether these populations are exhibiting plasticity or if they're undergoing local adaptation. So these comparisons are very important for conservation, agriculture, as I've mentioned, and climate change resilience. Kasi if we identify genetic diversity among populations, it can help our conservationists plan by, preserving locally adopted populations that would be more resilient to environmental shifts. And then in agriculture, we can also understand phenotypic plasticity versus genetic adaptation um, in terms of how it affects crop breeding for different climates. Additionally, predicting how species respond to climate change depends on whether they rely on genetic adaptation, which takes generations to form, or phenotypic plasticity, which allows for rapid response. So, more or less, that ends our session today. It's a little quicker, mostly because it's a lecture rather than a class discussion. But once again, I'll be flashing our updated schedule for the term. So today we've finished your introduction to evolutionary ecology, which is our second module. You might have noticed from our Animus space that module 2 is now visible to everyone. I hope that everyone can also take the time to watch lectures 1 and 2. And on Monday, we will go back to our usual reverse classroom approach where I've prepared a set of questions for you to answer and analyze based on lectures 1 and 2, the pre-recorded lectures 1 and 2. And hopefully after that, you can watch lectures 3 and 4 because on October 7, we will have your first quiz on evolutionary ecology. Now, disrupting our module 2 schedule, again, because of the weather, we will have a pause on evolutionary ecology on October 3, where we will have our first long exam on module 1. Okay, so that's it for our orientation session on module 2. I hope everybody stays safe, warm, and dry, and looking forward to seeing everybody again on Tuesday, September 3rd. Thank you very much. I will do my best to post this within 24 to 48 hours. Thank you and bye.